out the hand, switch, shooters on swoosh, hitters don't miss. Already just added a ton of y'all to my list. Bitch, death wish, not to be messed with, tested quiz. They shooting shots, hitting bricks, we testing the kids.
Hey, Deep Thrones family, Sheedy here. Thank you for joining us here on the Deep Thrones YouTube channel. I quickly wanted to give you a breakdown of a new thing that we're going to be doing. We don't have a name for it yet. I'm calling it Map Time, but Map Time is an unofficial title. This is a map of the known world of A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm going to break it down, cover some things on it, discuss some things on it. The podcast is Chris and Kinsey will be here, of course, for episodes as well. But just to kick this off, I'm here to just sort of introduce you to the concept, to hope, that you guys will join us as we continue to release little YouTube videos here and there, breaking down anything. We can break down battles, break down, scenes that we thought took some liberties with the travel time, break down why we think it doesn't make sense, show you that there is a fully fleshed out world that George R. R. Martin developed here in A Song of Ice and Fire. And we hope that you join us and enjoy this segment. Again, this will be strictly for YouTube since it is a visual medium. Over here is where majority of the story takes place. That's Westeros. That is the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, the 9 kingdoms, if you ask Egg from Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And I'll break down what those 9 regions are. It's 9 regions of Westeros today. We'll cover that more in a minute. Over here is Essos. This is where a majority of Daenerys Targaryen's story takes place. Braavos is there, obviously, the Dothraki Sea, Vaes Dothrak, Karth, Slaver's Bay. This is, again, where Daenerys conquers Meereen, Astropool, Yunkai. Old Valyria is there as well. Old Valyria, you can see, is this area in ruin. That is where Targaryens originally hail from, where all dragon riders originally hailed from, of course, until the doom of Valyria. As you see, it is now a desolate, broken down peninsula. That's where, again, the dragons were, and that's where the dragons died, except for the Targaryen dragons. So, important for the lore. And then, just to mention it so that you know that there are more continents, here is Southerros, not covered at all in the show. And here is Ulthos, down here. Both only exist as world building, essentially, George R. R. Martin said, specifically Ulthos. There is next to nothing known about Ulthos. Southerros has some really cool tidbits about it that we do know. But again, George R. R. Martin did that mainly, he said, to build the world so that hey, this is a real world. There's things out there that people can discover and find. And, it makes it feel like it's not so insulated. What's west of Westeros, of course, will always be a question until they maybe make that Arya spinoff that they're talking about. But that remains to be seen if they ever do that. Let's go to Westeros. Let's cover the 9 regions. I'm going to try to annotate the 9 regions with this pen. This is a new technology, folks. I have never done this before. Sims might hate it. And that's what's really exciting about this, is that I might do this terribly. But let's start actually in an area that's not considered part of Westeros. Let's go beyond the wall. Here is Castle Black right here. I'll line it up. Above that, of course, is the Land of Always Winter, the Frostfangs. The Frostfangs are in this region right here. Land of Always Winter up here. This is where the Night King lives with his army. The Haunted Forest is in this region right here. Craster's Keep is over here. Boom! I'm like John Madden. I'm like, look, you got to beat the Night King. You got to go north of the wall. You got to just give him a little zip-zop, boom. But that, of course, where majority of Jon Snow's story takes place is north of the wall right there, north of Castle Black. That's where, the wildlings live. That's where the others walk with their ice spiders. Of course, the wall built by the giants and built by the children of the forest, infused with magic to keep the White Walkers from invading Westeros. Constructed by Bran the Builder. Now, let's cover the north first, because everybody loves the north. Everyone is Stark fan. Everyone loves the Starks more than any other house. So let's zoom in real tight. The north, of course, as I said before, we're going to re-annotate this with the wall right here. So here's the wall. And then here's like the neck. It's kind of like right here above the Twins. This is where the north is. All of this. Considered parts of the north too. Here's Bear Island. That's part of the north. Here is Skagos. That's also part of the north. The north is ruled by Winterfell, where the Starks live. All of this is north. You can make the argument, thanks to the gift from Bran the Builder and then the new gift right here, this land here was given to the Night's Watch from the Starks to essentially be an area where they could farm and house additional Night's Watchmen. So technically that belongs to the Night's Watch. So everything else, though, is part of the North. It is the wildest of the continents by far. It is the, as Cersei says to Joffrey, you can never conquer it. It's too vast and wild. It is the largest by pure landmass. Of course, the coldest of winters happen in the north. So we're going to clear this screen really quick. We're going to move south, cross the neck toward the Twins. But before we get to the Twins, let's do an easy one. This is a gimme. The Iron Islands. When Aegon the Conqueror came to Westeros, there were 7 kingdoms. There are 9 now because of Aegon conquering it and things changing. But the Iron Islands also conquered, at that point in time, the riverlands. And I'm going to do this terribly. But the riverlands essentially encompass this right here. Oh, excuse me. This right here. Going here about halfway. Kind of down to here. Right here. Around this area. Over here. Around here. And here. So that's the riverlands. All right. That's me doing it in real time. This is a beta test. All right. I don't want to hear anything. But that's the riverlands. That is where the Tullys, of course, rule out of River Run. So this is, again, at the time when Aegon came, that was one kingdom. The Iron Islands had conquered the Riverlands, so that's why there were 7. There was one less, and of course the crownlands didn't exist. But so there's the Twins, as you see right here. This is where Robb Stark gets killed at the Red Wedding during his Uncle Edmure's wedding. And the Riverlands, of course, known for constantly quarreling amongst itself. Harrenhal, of course, is there, which was built by, at that time, the king of the Iron Islands. Harrenhal is here. A majority of House of the Dragon takes place in Harrenhal, because, of course, fucking Daemon is tweaking. Here's another gimme. Everything east of the Riverlands, essentially, right in this region here. This here, as I see me circling it poorly, that is the Vale. I'm going to put a V here for the Vale. The Vale of Arryn. That's the Vale. You see the Eyrie right there on the V. That is where Peter Baelish is from. Peter Baelish is actually from this region right here. These are called the Fingers. He is from the Fingers, and he was quite slight, which is why he got his nickname, the Little Finger, because he was a little guy from the Fingers. Again, this is where the Knights of the Vale are from. They, of course, are big, heavy Andal presence there. And they, of course, ride north, I should say, for the Battle of the Bastards. They save the day. That's where they hail from. That's where it's going to get a little difficult. The Westerlands are like the smallest region almost outside of the Crownlands. So the Westerlands are kind of like, they're just like a little like bada bing, a bada boom. This is the Westerlands right here. Casterly Rock right there. That, of course, is where the Lannisters are from. The Westerlands are ruled by the Lannisters. Tywin Lannister is the Warden of the West, at least at the start of Game of Thrones. Very rich area, a lot of gold. You see Lannisport is also circled right there. Lannisport is one of the great shipping ports of Westeros. And it's, the Gold Road goes through there to King's Landing. A lot of money running through there, but definitely the richest area of the 7 kingdoms is this area right here. This is the Reach. The Reach goes here. It includes this island here. Up through this region. Gonna hook around here. Kind of a little bit right there. Up around here. And then boom. So that's essentially what the Reach is. It is the most vast, I should say here. I'm going to put an R there so you know the Reach. It is the most vast in terms of farmable fields. It has the richest farmlands. People are able to grow a lot there. It was formed by an old king back in the Age of Heroes called Garth Greenhand. He, of course, believed farming was, of course, he very much was a green believer. And this is why it's the richest area, because in medieval times, food is currency. Food equals money. The high towers, of course, are from Old Town. That's down here. But at the time of Game of Thrones, the Tyrells rule the area from Highgarden, which is right here. And again, they have the most wealth in the Seven Kingdoms. Now, we're told to believe that Tywin Lannister has the most wealth because, of course, Casterly Rock was built on a mine, and that's where all the gold is. But again, when it's winter, you can't eat gold. You can't eat, the crops, though. And that's why the Reach is by far, at least in the time of Game of Thrones, the wealthier area. Now, here is this area right here. Down through about here. This was a region that also did not exist at the time of Aegon's conquest. This is the Crownlands. C. King's Landing, the capital of the Seven Kingdoms. The Crownlands would be, we covered the North, Iron Islands, Riverlands, Vale, Westerlands, Reach. This would be the 7th region. Again, did not exist when Aegon conquered Westeros. It was a disputed area between the Riverlands, between essentially all those kingdoms, and you see where their borders are. This was sort of kept empty. And then Aegon came with his 3 dragons and said, it'll be my land now. So it includes Dragonstone, of course, which is the seat of House Targaryen. And this is, again, it's where the capital is. You got the Kingswood just south right there of King's Landing, if you look on the map, circled underneath the sea. The King's Road also continues south from that. And if you go a little further south, right here is the Stormlands. And I'm going to try to, this is where it gets a little tough, because it kind of like buttons into here and then goes up around here. Stormlands, of course, ruled at Storm's End, right there. Put a little S here. This is where House Baratheon ruled for a very long time. Here's Tarth, actually, where Brienne of Tarth is from. Stormlands, of course, known for constantly warring in the Dornish marches against Dorne, which is to the south. That'll be the last one we cover. Again, the Baratheons rule from Storm's End. The Storm King was Argilac the Arrogant. Actually, in the books, his final act of defiance against Aegon was one of the things that made Aegon finally send ravens to all corners of Westeros, saying, "You are no longer 7 kingdoms. You will all bow to one king now, and it's going to be me." And then the easy one here, because the rest of the map is annotated already. Here's Dorne. Princess Nymeria, of course, landing here at Sunspear with her 10,000 ships from the Rhoynar. From the Rhoynar, I should say, with the Rhoynar. That's where, of course, whenever the king of the Andals and the First Men and the Rhoynar, it's because all these different folks immigrated to Westeros over the centuries that it's been around, created vast cultures. Why in the north they celebrate the old gods. Those are the gods of the First Men, the Weirwood trees. The south, they celebrate the new gods, the 7, the trial by 7, the mother, the father, the smith, the stranger, so on and so forth. But, of course, Dorne is where the Martells are from. They very much were their own kingdom. They weren't conquered by Aegon, actually. They didn't come into the fold until many years later via marriage. Aegon the Conqueror could not get them to bend the knee, which is why the words of House Martell and the words of Dorne are unbowed, unbent, unbroken. The Dornish March is right here. Up in this region is the Dornish Marches, and here's the Red Mountains of Dorne. A lot of battles have taken place here, especially when Aegon, in the time it took between Aegon conquering and that marriage pact, there was about a century of wars fought in those mountains, in Dornish marches, between the Stormlands, Dorne, the Reach, Dorne, the 8 kingdoms, or whatever you want to call them, the 6 kingdoms at that time in Dorne. But these are now the 9 regions of Westeros. You have the North, you have the Iron Islands, you have the Reach, you have the Westerlands, you have the Riverlands, you have the Vale, the Crownlands, you have the Stormlands, and you have Dorne. But again, when Aegon the Conqueror came, the Iron Islands had conquered the Riverlands, so 1 less, that's 8, and the Crownlands did not exist, that's 7. Dorne, Stormlands, Riverlands, Westerlands, the Iron Island Riverland combo, Vale in the North. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed making it. This is my sloppy football breakdown of this, again, my John Madden. But we intend to do a lot more of this, a lot more breaking down of where things take place. And yeah, let me know. Send me some feedback. But we really appreciate you guys watching.
not to be messed with, tested, quiz. They shooting shots,